Professor, I don't understand the concept of experimental methods with causal research. Could you please explain it to me?
Yes, causal research is indeed a challenging research method. I will explain it in a way that is easy to understand, so try to focus until the end. Causal or explanatory research is a type of research that investigates the causal relationship between a specific cause and its impact on other variables. For example, it examines how the sales revenue and market share of a product change when its price is lowered. In this case, the change in the product's price becomes the independent, or cause variable, while the sales revenue and market share become the dependent, or outcomes variables. In other words, causal research aims to identify the causal relationship between the independent and dependent variables. The experimental method is one of the research methods used in causal research. The experimental method can be categorized into various types. It can be divided into primitive experimental designs, pure experimental designs, and quasi-experimental designs. Primitive experimental designs can be further divided into three categories, as shown on the screen, while pure experimental designs are also divided into three categories. Quasi-experimental designs, on the other hand, are divided into four categories. These terms can be quite challenging to grasp and are not easily understandable. Therefore, in this lecture, I will focus on explaining only the most important ones. First, let me explain the key terminology. In the experimental method, the term experimental design is used. Experimental design refers to designing the research in a way that ensures the dependent variable is solely influenced by the independent variable. For example, let's consider a study titled, Investigating the Impact of TV Advertising for Product A on Sales Revenue. When product A is advertised on TV, it undoubtedly affects the sales revenue. However, during the research period, consumers' income may change, or the prices of other products may fluctuate, leading to changes in product A's sales revenue. Therefore, we need to measure only the changes directly caused by TV advertising, excluding the influence of other factors. Designing the study in a way that measures only the impact of the independent variable on the dependent variable, while excluding other factors, is called experimental design. Furthermore, there is a term called pre-test, post-test design. The TV advertising serves as one experiment. To measure the experimental effect of TV advertising, we first need to measure consumer behavior before the TV advertising takes place. This is called pre-test measurement. Then, we measure the changes in consumer behavior after the TV advertising. This is called post-test measurement. Additionally, there are terms called experimental group and control group. When conducting an experiment like TV advertising, the group that is exposed to the TV advertisement is the experimental group, while the group that is not exposed to the TV advertisement and kept under control is called the control group. Now let's explain the experimental methods. As mentioned earlier, they can be categorized into primitive experimental designs, pure experimental designs, and quasi-experimental designs. In primitive experimental designs, there are single-group post-test designs, single-group pre-test post-test designs, and group comparison post-test designs. In pure experimental designs, there are control group post-test designs, control group pre-test post-test designs, and Solomon 4 group designs. Furthermore, in quasi-experimental designs, there are two-group pre-test post-test designs, time series designs, repeated measures designs, and independent samples pre-test post-test designs. Explaining all 10 designs would take a lot of time, so here, I will focus on explaining 4 key experimental designs that are crucial for understanding: single group pre-test design, single group pre-test post-test design, control group pre-test post-test design, and time series design. First, let's explain the single group post-test design. The single group post-test design measures the response of a group after the TV advertisement is aired. Only the responses after the TV advertisement are investigated. However, since we don't know how the responses were before the TV advertisement, we cannot compare the changes in responses before and after the advertisement, which is a disadvantage. Nevertheless, this design is very useful for exploratory research, where pre-test measurements are not possible, such as new product testing or intention to purchase surveys for new products. The second design is the single group pre-test post-test design. This design measures the responses of a group before the TV advertisement, and then measures the responses again after the advertisement to evaluate its effectiveness. The difference between the pre-advertisement response, A, and the post-advertisement response, B, represents the advertising effect. The disadvantage of this method is that it cannot distinguish whether the observed response changes during the measurement period are due to the TV advertisement or other factors. The third design is the control group pre-test post-test design. In this design, a sample representing the population is selected before the TV advertisement, and it is divided into an experimental group and a control group. The experimental group's responses are measured before the TV advertisement and then measured again after the advertisement to compare the differences in responses. The control group's responses are also measured at the same time as the experimental group, but without exposure to the TV advertisement, and the differences in responses are compared. If there are differences in the responses before and after the TV advertisement in the control group, it can be attributed to other factors, excluding the TV advertisement. Therefore, by comparing the changes in responses of the experimental group and the control group, we can accurately identify the changes solely attributable to the TV advertisement. This is known as the control group pre-test post-test design. However, although this experimental design is highly desirable, it has the drawback of being difficult to implement in practical terms. The fourth design is the time series design. The time series design is used when it is not possible to classify the subjects into experimental and control groups. In this design, the subjects are first organized into a panel, and their responses are measured at multiple time points before the TV advertisement and repeatedly measured after the advertisement to track changes in responses. While the time series design is widely used in economics, due to its high persuasiveness achieved through repeated measurements over an extended period, it still has the limitation of not being able to separate changes caused by other factors.
I now understand the complex experimental designs. Thank you for the easy-to-understand explanation.